Please welcome back your Academy Dean, Dean Hobbs.
Good morning. Good morning. I hope you had a great time yesterday. I hope the networking was rewarding and fun, and it was good to connect. I hope the experience of digging into the case gave you a little bit more confidence about the messages and some of the facts that you're going to weave in. Just to recap where we've been and where we're going, yesterday we reminded each other about the model of confidence, and we applied that to an investor relations perspective, and we dug really deep there. The analyst and investor setting is just one of the most difficult settings that you're going to face. It's one of the most difficult settings that your bosses or your CEOs have really ever faced. And so today, we're going to dig in more there and with media. But regardless of the setting, the bar is here. You must communicate with confidence and credibility. Today, I'm really excited because there's someone that we've been working with for about 5 years, I think, Michelle. And you're going to hear from Michelle Ann Johnson, who focuses on communication training. She has a particular focus on the media. You're going to have a blast. Michelle is here to help you tell any story and really adjust to any media and let your personality shine through while doing that. And then later on today, you're going to have media training with Michelle and Corey and Mike. We're talking about thousands and thousands of people that this trio has done media training for. And I'm excited that you get to take advantage of that. Just to introduce Michelle for a minute, and you're going to forget everything I say because she's so exciting, like within the first 30 seconds that she's up here. She's known as the speech queen. She's a facilitator. She's a coach. She's also a professional consultant. She's worked internationally with Fortune 500 companies on a range of industries. She's also an accomplished actress, and I'm not sure if you noticed yet. You may actually recognize her once you get a chance to see. She's guest starred in over 30 top TV shows. You're going to know the list, but it's Friends, CSI, 24, Bones, many, many other. Michelle, thank you so much for joining us today. We're excited to hear from you.
Thank you.
You bet.
Good morning. Good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
It's a pleasure to be here. Everybody's got their coffee. I know it's early, but we're going to have some fun today, okay? So, influencer. Very big word these days. Everyone's an influencer. Usually means a social media personality, but I'm just curious, do I have any influencers in the room? Any influencers? All right, every hand should be raised. He's already he's owning it. Every hand should be raised. We're going to take back that word, okay? I define influence as getting people to do things they wouldn't otherwise do on their own. And I'm sure if you think about what you do all day long, all the conversations, all the meetings, a big chunk of your time is spent getting people to do things they wouldn't otherwise do on their own, right? So you all are influencers in the truest sense of the word. And really, this whole academy is an exploration of influence, because you influence in different ways. You influence by sharing information, educating and informing people on all the financial stuff. You influence by being really good at your jobs. You influence by telling people what to do. You influence by modeling certain values or an ethos. But let's not forget that one of the main ways that you influence is simply with your presence, right? By how you show up. It's your attitude, your vibe. You don't even have to say a word. Your presence speaks volumes. And it's why you can have two people using the same influence tactics, but because their presence is different, they'll get different results. And I've seen, as an executive coach to senior leaders, that the higher up you go in the organization, the further you go in your career, the more your presence plays a role in your leadership. You know, recently I had the opportunity to work with the chief technology officer of a major media company. I'm not going to tell you which one. Major media company, right? And almost overnight, he went from leading 200 people to 2,000 people. And he had a lot to do. He had to unite several teams into one. He had to create a unifying culture. He had to roll out a new strategy, C-suite officer stuff. And there was no doubt that he was the right person for the job when it came to his competence. No one knew technology more than him. The problem was his presence. His presence didn't match his position. And it was keeping him from fully stepping into his new role and embodying the kind of leadership presence that he needed to build trust with his team. And so they bring me on to work with him. And one of the first things I did was watch a video of him delivering a town hall to his new team. And I gotta tell you, no bueno. Between you and me, I had to keep rewinding the video to make sure I was watching the right person. Because you got the sense that at any moment, this dude might turn around and run out of the room. He looked terrified. You would never know that he was the chief technology officer of $1 billion corporation. And this wasn't something we could fix with vocal exercises and zhuzhing his PowerPoint deck. No, we had to go deeper. We had to go deeper. And listen, he's not alone. He's not alone. As Dean Hobbs said, over the last 10 years, I've worked with thousands of professionals on their communication and influence. It's been like having my own presence laboratory. And I've seen that regardless of the role, the title, the industry, there are leaders who have presence and leaders who don't. And the ones that have presence tend to have 3 things in common. It's very interesting. You get a sense that they know who they are and they're comfortable in their own skin. You get a sense that they believe in themselves and their abilities, and they're motivated and engaged in what they're doing. They have authenticity, confidence, and purpose. This is the magic formula for presence. And so my ACP presence model says that when you cultivate authenticity, confidence, and purpose on the inside, you naturally begin to express more presence on the outside. This is what we're going to be working on. And listen, it goes the other way as well. When people don't have presence, the opposite tends to be true. They're not comfortable in their own skin, or they don't believe in themselves, or they're not engaged in what they're doing, or some combination of the 3. And I know that this idea of presence, it's a little intangible, right? It's a little hard to define, but I can tell you that not having it can have a very real cost. It can keep you from being taken seriously in your role. It can create a perception of you that isn't who you really are. And unfortunately, I've seen this, it can be the one thing holding you back from advancing in your career. However, when I teach people to connect to their authenticity, confidence, and purpose, guess what? It transforms their presence. They find their swag, their riz, whatever the kids are calling it these days, they find it. You know what the kids are calling it these days? Aura. Anybody heard that? Bro's got aura, right? They find their aura. And over again, I've seen career opportunities open up for folks that were once out of reach just by transforming their presence. It's pretty incredible. So, no matter who you are, no matter what work you do, you have to influence other people to get things done. You have to influence other people to accomplish your goals. And as CFOs, you don't just have to influence internally, you have to also influence externally, which is what the next couple of days is all about. And I found that influence is so much easier when you have the kind of presence that makes people want to know you, want to listen to you, want to be around you, want to recommend you, want to refer you, want to sponsor you, want to promote you, want to have you lead that team. It amplifies and accelerates your influence. And the great news is you don't have to look like me to have presence. You don't have to look like anybody else. I want you to find your unique expression of presence, what it looks like and feels like for you, because it's going to be different for everybody. It should be different for everybody. That's the whole point. You want to be the most authentic, confident, and purposeful version of you and show that to the world. That is presence. Good night, tip your waiter, right? That's the whole shebang. Are we all on board? We're all on board? Yes? Okay. So let's start building presence from the inside out, starting with authenticity. First of all, what is authenticity? I'm big on definitions, okay? We throw these terms out all the time. Just be authentic. Just be you, right? If it were that easy, we would all be authentic all the time. There's a reason why we're not. It's because authenticity requires you to do two huge things. Huge. You have to know yourself and show yourself. You need to do both to be authentic. Because you can know who you are, but not show who you are. I see this a lot. And you can be showing, but not be showing your true, authentic self. So whenever I'm working with my clients, I always ask them to grade themselves on the knowing and the showing separately, because these are two distinct skill sets. So let's do that right now. Show of hands. On a scale of 1 to 5, low to high, how many of you feel like you know yourself pretty well? You give yourself a 3 or higher. A 3 or higher. You know yourself pretty well. Okay, almost everybody. Great. Okay, scale of 1 to 5, low to high. How many of you feel like you show your authentic self most of the time? You'd give yourself a 3 or higher. Okay, pretty good. You guys are a pretty authentic bunch. This isn't scientific, but from what I see, most people feel like they know themselves pretty well. Pretty standard, right? I'm walking around inside this meat suit, right? So I know myself. I'm inside myself. I know myself, whether or not that's the case. What I tend to see is that people feel like the showing piece is a little harder. Let's dig into this. Let's dig in, because most of you said, yeah, I show my authentic self pretty well. Let's dig in. Most people feel like they know themselves, but the showing can be harder. And it's because authenticity is authority that comes from the truth of your experience. Authenticity is authority that comes from the truth of your experience. And the biggest obstacle to you standing in your truth is fear of rejection. Let's just put it out there. Let's talk about it. Can we talk? Can we talk? Let's talk about fear of rejection. I know it's really easy to think once we get to a certain age or a certain level, we're not afraid of rejection anymore. That's not what I find. We're afraid that if we tell people what we really think and feel, who we really are, what we've experienced, that they won't like us or accept us or understand us. And this fear isn't irrational, by the way. We're not making it up. Raise your hand if you've ever been rejected. Raise your hand if you like being rejected. Right? Where are all the hands? No one likes being rejected. It sucks. It's painful. Easy solution, put up a wall. A wall we hide our authentic selves behind. But here's the thing with this wall. Sometimes we don't even know it's there. You know, years ago, I had this fantastic acting teacher, and his philosophy was, your weakness as an actor is your weakness as a human being. Because an actor has to be versatile and able to play a lot of different parts. And if you've got an emotional block somewhere, as a human being, it's going to limit the kind of parts you could play. So when you enrolled in his class, you would have to sit and do an interview and tell him all about your life, starting at birth. You remember that show, Inside the Actor Studio? It was a little like that. Am I dating myself? Am I the only one that watched that show? Yeah, you had to tell him all about your life so that he could find your weakness and know how to develop you as an actor. So I enroll in the class, I do the interview, and he very quickly saw my wall. I was tough. I had a hard outer shell, which is why I kept getting cast as the cop in all these TV shows. The cop, the lawyer, DOD counterintelligence supervisor Emma Fisher on NCIS. I could not understand why. Because inside my meat suit, I was the warmest, cuddliest, friendliest person. I was the girl next door. I wasn't the cop. Couldn't see my wall. And it's so funny because for years, people have been telling me, Michelle, do you realize your arms are crossed all the time? I'd be like, I don't know what you're talking about. My resting pose was defensive. Keep out. Couldn't see my wall. But this acting teacher saw my wall. And more importantly, he saw that behind the wall was this very sensitive, emotional person. So do you know what this man did to me to break down my wall? Do you know what he did to me? He gave me every crying scene you can imagine. All the crying scenes, all the breakup scenes, don't leave me, no, right? All the getting fired scenes, don't fire me. All the hospital deathbed scenes, don't die on me. I was just crying just like liquid everywhere, just like the ugly cries, right? And at first, I hated him for it. I hated this man so much. Couldn't believe he was putting me through this. But then I started to like it. It was liberating. If I had a bad day, I could just go to my acting class and just put it all into the scene that I was playing. And it became so easy for me to access the vulnerability of the character that I was playing, that had made me realize that one of my gifts, my inherent gifts, is empathy. Like scary empathy, like I can feel other people's emotions, but it was hiding behind the wall. And it took that acting class for me to see my wall and to start to chip away at that wall. So, very important question for you. What's your wall? What's your wall? Maybe it's toughness, like mine. Maybe it's intellectualizing. Mr. Spock, I do not have emotions. Maybe it's people-pleasing. That can be a wall. Walls come in all shapes and sizes. What's your wall? And just as important, what gifts are hiding behind that wall? Right? We think that wall is protecting us, but it comes with a price. Maintaining that wall takes a lot of energy, and it can cause stress and anxiety and burnout. It can keep you from connecting with people more deeply. It can keep you from expressing your full potential with the world. And so we have to find the courage to take down some of those bricks and let our authentic selves shine through. And this can be so incredibly powerful. As Dean Hobbs said, I've been working on this academy now and other academies for a number of years. And a couple of academies ago, we were doing the media interviews, and there was a gentleman, he did the interview, and he was good. He was really good. You could tell he'd been trained, he'd had some media training before. He was so polished. He was a little too polished. He was so polished you couldn't see the person. And so I asked him, I said, what do you do for fun? Like, what do you do on your weekends? He went, oh, well, I got this truck that I like to tinker with. I said, wow, tell me about this truck. Instantly, he was in tears. It kind of surprised him. He went, it was my father's truck. Yeah, I like to work on the truck because it reminds me of my dad, and I hope to pass it on to my son one day. Whew. I said, right there, right where you are, I want you to do the interview over again. He wiped away the tears. Corey threw him another question, and he was fantastic. He was so good. He still had the polish, but now you saw the human being. That's what we're talking about. So, am I saying to cry during your media interviews? No. No. Unless you want to. No. What I am saying is, before that media interview, before whatever presentation or communication situation you find yourself in, spend some time affirming your authentic self. Who are you? What are your strengths? Outside of work, what do people know you for? What do they love you for? What are your hobbies? What lights you up? What makes you a little different, a little unique? What are those experiences that have gone into shaping who you are today? All of that has value. That's the stuff that creates connection. That's the stuff that we like to see. That's the gold. So bring it into the room with you. Don't leave it outside. Questions about authenticity before I move on to confidence. Anybody have any questions about authenticity? What's on your minds? You're good? Okay. I know that these ideas make people deeply reflective.
Hi, Michelle.
Yes.
Question for you.
Hello.
You know, most of the
Can you
times.
turn your microphone on? Just want to make sure everybody can hear you.
Yeah, I mean, you know, we all work, many of us in large organizations, and being able to fit in the culture is really important, whether it's a senior team or top 30 or top 300. And a lot of times that sort of stops people from truly being who they are, or at least they're hesitant because they want to be a team player. They want to fit in. How do you sort of balance that out where you might be on your own tangent, but at the same time, you got to be seen as someone others can work with, you know? And you might say, look, if you're authentic, you know, people would work with you. But when you look at finance organization, your typical tendency is to look at glass half full, what's not going well, versus you're not the chief cheerleader. So I'm kind of curious, how do you deal with those kind of situations?
Well, I think the word that you said is the key. It's about balance. It's not an either or. You can be adaptable and be a team player and also find room for your natural personality, for your own thoughts and opinions to also shine through. I think that's the thing that we're looking for, because sometimes we feel like we've got to be either or. I've either got to be me and kind of go against everything else to feel like you're being authentic, but that's not the case. That's not the case at all. So authenticity for me is really about, the goal isn't to be 100% authentic 100% of the time. You wouldn't have many friends if you did that. I don't want anybody going, Michelle told me to be authentic. No. It's about finding more opportunities to share your true thoughts and feelings in the moment, finding more opportunities to share personality traits and characteristics. I'm an extrovert, I'm an introvert, I'm analytical, I'm creative. Here are my values. Here's my lived experience, right? So doing that doesn't push against the culture, it adds to the culture. That's what we're talking about. Yeah.
Sorry, if I may ask one more.
Sure.
You mentioned being vulnerable and showing people your weaknesses or, you know, things that you're afraid of. And most of us, when we go in front of the board or, you know, the C-suite, we're trying to put a brave face on, right? We want to be on our best behavior. Can you talk a little bit about what does it involve when you say be vulnerable, show your authentic self?
Yeah, vulnerability isn't about wearing your heart on your sleeve all the time. Vulnerability can simply mean, here's how I feel about this particular situation. Even with the board, I think oftentimes they're looking for you to share what you think given your particular experience, your particular perspective. So yes, you are a spokesperson for the organization, but they're also looking to you to be a real human being who can be transparent and share with them what you're really thinking and feeling about the situation. So I would think that that would be a perfect opportunity for you to bring your lens and your unique experience to bear on whatever you're sharing with the board. Does that make sense? Fantastic. Yeah. Great. So let's move on to confidence. Confidence. You know, it's easy to think that confidence comes from being really good at something or having a lot of experience, but it doesn't. Confidence doesn't come from competence. It comes from your belief in your competence. And that means that you can be great at something. You can have all the experience in the world. You can have awards on the mantle. If you don't believe it, you won't feel confident. And it doesn't matter what anyone else says. Imposter syndrome, anyone? Everybody know about imposter syndrome? I know about imposter syndrome. I can tell you all about it. Story time. Back in 2002, I had the opportunity to be cast in a featured role in the touring company of The Lion King. Everybody know The Lion King, right? It's still on Broadway 24 years later. Pretty impressive. Back then, in the olden days, it was the biggest show on Broadway. It had made tons of money, won all the awards. The casting directors, who were responsible for putting the cast together, they knew me from previous auditions. And so when the touring company came along, they essentially offered me the part. I didn't really have to audition. Let me just put this in terms that everybody can understand. An actor auditions for everything. I had to audition for a woman in a coma on CSI. Right? Can you pretend you're in a coma? Yeah, right? Everything. So to be offered a part in The Lion King, it's like every actor's dream. So they're like, you know, here we are. We want you, Michelle. Welcome aboard. Congratulations. I said, thanks, but no thanks. No thanks. I turned it down. Now, at the time, I said, no, I want to stay in Los Angeles and focus on my television career, get more cop roles. Can never have too many of those, right? But if I'm really honest with myself, I turned it down because I wasn't confident I could do the part. I had major imposter syndrome about my singing. They liked my singing. They wanted to hire my singing. They believed in me. I did not believe in myself. I often get asked to work with talented professionals who are crushing it at their jobs. There's no doubt about their competence, but their lack of confidence in themselves keeps bleeding through their presence, so their leaders don't feel confident promoting them or putting them in a room with a client. So what is happening? What's going on? What's creating this disconnect between our ability and our belief in our ability, between our competence and our confidence? Well, it turns out there are 4 kinds of experiences that we use to create our feeling of confidence. Confidence is a feeling, right? And so, as I go through these, I want you to self-diagnose. Which of these is your confidence killer? What are the stories you're telling yourself that are keeping you feeling less confident than you should be, given your actual ability? Keeping you feeling like a fake, a phony, a fraud. Maybe you experienced a failure in your past. Failure. You didn't do as well as you would have liked. And now you're telling yourself, I'm no good and I'll never be any good. Or maybe you got some feedback from someone, especially somebody that you admire, someone you respect, a parent, a teacher, a boss, right? Those kinds of folks. And you're telling yourself, well, they said I'm no good, so it must be true. Or maybe you're comparing yourself to someone. This one's a little funny. You ever compare yourself to someone you think is worse than you at something? Doesn't it feel good? It feels really good. You're like, they suck. I'm crushing this. But the minute you compare yourself to someone you think is better than you, you're like, they're amazing. I suck. Funny how that works. This one is my bugaboo. By the way, this is my confidence killer. No joke. One of the reasons I didn't feel confident doing that Lion King part was because I was comparing myself to Whitney Houston. Pretty dumb, right? But this is what we do. It's not rational. But I thought, listen, if I'm going to be in a Broadway show, if I don't sound like Whitney Houston, I shouldn't open my mouth. Setting the bar way too high. Who's your Whitney Houston? Somebody at work? What's going on, right? This is what we do. Or, because we're human, sometimes we get nervous. Our physiology betrays us. We get nervous, but that's okay. But we tell ourselves, uh-oh, I'm nervous. That must mean I'm no good. That must mean I'm not ready. Because if I had it all together, I wouldn't be nervous, right? Wrong. You can be nervous and still be confident. But this is what we do to ourselves. We do it to ourselves. Sometimes we're our own worst enemy. Anybody get some insight into their confidence killer? Anybody go, oh, that's what I've been doing to myself? Anybody want to share? Anybody want to share? For me, when I'm coaching folks, the feedback tends to be something that shows up over and over again. There's something about getting feedback in your professional career that can be particularly damaging. Particularly damaging. So I see a lot of people who are holding on to something someone said 10 years ago. They haven't gotten past it. So the first step in building up your confidence is knowing what's tearing it down. What's the confidence killer? What's the story you're telling yourself that's keeping you feeling like a fake, a phony, or fraud, right? That's the first step. The second step is to choose. Sure, you could choose to base your confidence on a few experiences that may possibly, potentially suggest that maybe, possibly, potentially you're not any good. You could do that. Or you could choose to base your confidence on all the experience and evidence that actually proves your competence. And so I want to encourage you to catalog, make a list, record all of your success stories. You all have been accomplishing and achieving your entire lives. You wouldn't be in this room if that weren't the case. But we forget all the things we've done because we're so busy doing, right? So to have true, authentic confidence, we have to remind ourselves of the success stories, both professional and personal. It all counts. All the things you've done, all the accomplishments, all the things you did that were really hard. You didn't know if you could do it. Other people told you you couldn't do it, but you pushed through and you persevered and you did it. And let's not forget plain old life adversity. The stuff life just throws at you, right? Because to overcome those things require skills and inner resources that are just as much a part of your competence as your subject matter expertise. We just don't give ourselves credit for it. I just got a new coaching client. She came to me because she has imposter syndrome. Despite her impressive resume, she's worked for great companies, high-level positions, she was still feeling like, I don't deserve to be here. I don't deserve to be in the room with all these important people. So she starts telling me her story about how at 5 years old, she helped her family escape a war. They had to hide at night and go through mountains. It was like out of a movie. And then when she got to the States, she essentially became the parent in her family. Very difficult circumstances. And she tells me that she didn't really talk about this time in her life because it was just too painful. But as she's talking about it, these are her words. She says, I realize now that I haven't been giving myself credit for the bravery and strength that it took to survive that. And by the end of our call, she was like, of course I deserve a seat at the table. Of course I deserve to be in those rooms. I'm still the same little girl that helped her family survive a war. See what we're doing? What adversity have you overcome? We all have our stories. We all have, look, I have mine, mother with a mental illness, right? Had to go visit her in a mental institution, all the things. What are your stories? I'm sure some of you share just one thing that you've overcome. We would all look at you like, wow, how'd you do that? I don't know if I could have done that, but we don't give ourselves credit. We don't give ourselves credit for those victories, and we certainly don't give ourselves credit for all the things we learned, all the character traits, all the qualities that we learned going through those experiences. So, the next time you need a confidence boost, the next time you're feeling like a fake, a phony, a fraud, I want you to remind yourself of those success stories. Remind yourself, I did that, I can do this. I went to night school to get that degree. I overcame that illness. I survived the loss of a loved one. Whatever that is for you, I can do this. I can raise my hand for that project. I can go for that promotion. I can do that media interview. I can do that board presentation, whatever this is. I did that. I can do this. It puts it all in perspective. It really does. We get to choose what we believe about ourselves. That's what confidence is all about. Questions. Questions about confidence before we move on to purpose. What do you got, Sandeep? He does have something. He's like, well, yes.
I was debating, is this a little bit counter to the authenticity point? That, if you're, let's say, modest and, by nature, that's your nature. How do you, I guess there might be a boundary between confidence and overconfidence. Like, how do you sort of distinguish between the two, that just enough, but not, I've heard phrases like, fake it until you make it and things like that. Yeah, right? So, and I've heard friends who say that to me, and I'm always debating, like, wait a minute, you're just being overconfident, you don't have the capability. So I've seen people be more confident than their competence.
Yes. So confidence is not the same as bravado. You don't have to be chest puffed out. You don't have to fake it. Confidence is simply about, do I believe in myself relative to my actual ability? That's it. So it's not about fake it till you make it. It's not about making up stories. It's given who I am in my totality, not just my professional experience, but also my inherent strengths and gifts and all the things that I've learned throughout my life. How confident should I feel in myself and my abilities? Because you're right, we can be overconfident relative to your actual ability, but what I see most of the time is people are underconfident relative to your actual ability. And I think sometimes we mistake humility, like I don't want to brag, I don't want to be, egotistical or arrogant. No, I'm not. That's not confident. Confident has nothing to do with arrogance. Because arrogance is, I'm better than other people. And I think that's what we see a lot. We see bad examples of confidence. No. You can be confident and still be humble at the same time. Yeah. Thanks, Sandeep. Anybody else? Okay. Let's move on to purpose then. Purpose. Purpose is a vision that gives you a sense of direction, meaning, and contribution. Think about each one of those. When you have direction, you're not wandering around. You know where you're headed. When something is meaningful, you're not wasting your time. It's important to you. And when you feel like you're contributing something of value, you're not a passive observer sitting on the sidelines. You are actively invested in the process. And think about how differently you show up when you know where you're headed, it's important to you, and you're invested. That's what purpose gives you. Now, there are two kinds of purpose. First, there's life purpose, purpose of your life, the overarching motivation that you orient your life around. Life purpose. This is what most of us think about. I think it's funny that when we think about life purpose, we usually describe it as finding your purpose. Gotta find your purpose. Have you found your purpose? Like it's in witness protection or something. It's very strange. Is it hiding from me? What's going on, right? Listen, some people do find their purpose. They find that they are a lawyer, a parent, a finance professional. Maybe that's your purpose. I found that my purpose, my calling is being a teacher. But listen, not everybody connects to that idea, and that's okay. Because there's a second kind of purpose. Not purpose of your life, purpose within life. Situational purpose. And you don't find this kind of purpose, you choose it. You can create purpose for yourself at any given moment, for any situation. And when you do that, you elevate how you show up to that situation. On the screen here, two statements that essentially describe the same situation. They're just framed differently. The first statement is an example of what I call a gotta statement. Whenever I'm working with my clients, I always ask them, what's the purpose of your talk, your meeting, whatever we're working on? And I hear a lot of gottas. I just gotta give them an update. Just gotta, meet with this person. I just gotta share the numbers. There's no real excitement or enthusiasm. It's just something they gotta do. Question for you. How often are you in the gottas? 25% of the time? 50% of the time? I did this with another group. I got to the 50%, and one guy went, your whole day's in the gottas. Got it. Yeah, probably more than you would like. The second statement is an example of what I call a purpose statement. It's focused on how you're contributing something of value. It's focused on the experience you want to create. It's internally driven, so there's a positive emotional investment. Purpose makes you psychologically and emotionally engaged in what you're doing. Translation, you want to be there. Unless you're a really good actor, better than me, if you don't want to be there, if you're just not that into it, it's going to show up in your presence. I know we think we can fake it, we can hide it, but people can sense it. So I want to encourage you, create a purpose statement for yourself to elevate you from being task-oriented, gotta-oriented, to vision-oriented. How can I use this experience to create meaning for myself and for others? And let me share with you how to apply this today. You know all those practice presentations you have this afternoon? Perfect opportunity to create a purpose statement for yourself. And you can say it to yourself right before you begin. I call it the moment before you start speaking, because I understand it can be very easy to get caught in the gottas in those situations. I just got to remember all this information. I just got to get through this. I just got to not embarrass myself, right? Very easy. Instead, your purpose statement could be, I'm sharing valuable information to help my audience make a better decision. Your purpose statement could be, I'm telling the story of the numbers to make it more understandable. It could be, I'm using this experience to practice being a better communicator. That is a perfectly valid purpose statement because it's intentional. It's intentional. And think about how differently your presence would be, you would show up with the second set of purpose statements than the first set of gotta statements. I just got to get through this. I just got to remember everything, right? So we're talking about connecting what's going on up here with what's happening out there. We have to start telling ourselves positive stories that support the stories we tell others, especially as leaders. Listen, I'm not immune. I can get caught up in the goddess too. Oh, I gotta hop on a plane and go talk to these really smart people, right? I can get caught up in that too, and I have to go, no, Michelle. We are inspiring leaders to be authentic, confident, and purposeful communicators. That juices me up. I want to be here for that. Yeah. Sometimes we're so focused on motivating other people, we forget we have to motivate ourselves as well. That's what purpose is all about. So, authenticity, confidence, and purpose. They are the gifts that keep on giving. Because not only do they benefit you, it creates this ripple effect. When you know yourself and show yourself without the wall, when you believe in yourself because you know what you can do and what you come through, when you are invested and know you're contributing something of value, you change the experience of the people around you. They respond to you differently. You inspire them to be more authentic, confident, and purposeful. And now, you've changed the entire dynamic in your environment. And it starts with one person, you. That's powerful. That is power. You want some power? That's power. You know, at this point in our conversation, you might be feeling a little more powerful. I hope you are. I'm going to let you in on a little secret. Yes, we've been talking about presence and building that with authenticity, confidence, and purpose. But here's what we've really been talking about. What we've really been talking about is this right here. Personal power. When was the last time you heard that phrase? Personal power. We don't talk enough about personal power, especially as it relates to leadership. So let's change that right now. To really understand personal power, we have to first talk about social power, because this is what we normally think about when we think about power. For the last 10 years, I've worked with all these people. I work with people who are 10, 20, sometimes 30 years into their careers. Their entire adult lives, they've been chasing social power, the money, the title, the responsibility, the recognition. Don't get me wrong. There's nothing wrong with those things. Listen, I love those things. I'm type A. Give me all the money, all the title. Give it all, right? It's just that these folks have those things, but the way they're showing up isn't working. And so they come to me and they say, Michelle, I need to work on my presence. I've been told I need to work on my presence. But that's just a symptom. Because what's really going on is they're disconnected from their personal power. They're out of balance. They're out of balance. They're living in that lower right quadrant. They've got the high social power with the low personal power. And when you're out of balance, when your social power and your personal power are out of balance, it can look like a lack of presence. It can look like plateauing in your career, conflict with your colleagues, burnout, even confusion. I did everything I thought I was supposed to. It's still not enough. And so, we get to work on the personal power. We start doing that inner work. We counter the limiting beliefs and the insecurities and the imposter syndrome with authenticity, confidence, and purpose. And when you grow your authenticity, confidence, and purpose, you grow your personal power. And when you grow your personal power, the research shows you're more self-aware, you have higher self-esteem, you're more optimistic, more motivated, more resilient, you're better at goal setting, better at decision making, better memory, better attention. And it's not hard to see how all of those things would lead to more social power, to all the things that you're looking for. Because when you feel powerful on the inside, you look powerful on the outside, and you don't have to fake it. You don't. Where's Sandeep? He didn't hear this. You don't have to fake it. So, wherever you are, as you look at this quadrant, you're like, where am I? Where are you on this 2x2? I want you to aim for that upper right quadrant, where you have both the high social power and the high personal power. That's where the magic happens. That's where the magic happens. I've seen firsthand the impact this can have. You remember that chief technology officer I talked about way back at the beginning? Yeah, this is the stuff we worked on. Yeah, we worked on the technical components of communication, yes. But first, we built a foundation of personal power. We built up his confidence so that he believed that he had great ideas that deserved to be heard and that his opinions mattered. We supercharged his sense of purpose by clarifying his aspirational vision so he could share it with his team. But it was the authenticity that created the biggest transformation. In one of our sessions, he told me he wanted to create a culture of collaboration and belonging, and he wanted to lead by example. I said, great. How do you model these values for your team? It hit us. He hadn't yet shared his story with anyone at the company. He'd been there for 6 years, hadn't told them anything about himself, hadn't shared how he was born in a refugee camp in a war-torn country, literally in a tent. The story of how his family had an arduous journey to the United States and why the values of collaboration and belonging were so important to him because he was raised in a family of immigrants. He hadn't yet shared his story. He had a wall. So he took down the wall. He finally shared his story at a town hall to the whole company. And not only was the feedback overwhelmingly positive because they finally got a sense of who he was as a person, but it inspired other people to start sharing their stories. And collaboration increased, and belonging increased, and engagement increased. And it's no surprise that he was promoted yet again, leading even more people. Beautiful example of authentic leadership. And I got to tell you, I saw him at an event late last year at his company. He looked like a completely different person. There was a literal physical transformation. I was like, you look good. He was like, he knew he looked good. Bro found his aura, right? He looked fantastic. It was like this walking illustration of the ACP presence model. The outer transforms because of the inner. And that is what is in store for all of you. That's what you get to work on over the next couple of days. It's just about putting these principles into practice and seeing the transformation for yourself. And as Dean Hobbs said, I'm going to be in the media interviews later on this afternoon with Corey and Mike. We'll be talking more about authenticity, confidence, and purpose. But for now, we've got 4 minutes and 45 seconds. What questions do you have about anything that I've talked about or anything that I haven't talked about? Press that button.
Hi, Michelle.
Hi.
So I have a question. Many of us are very driven people, and we focus a lot on just kind of achieving the goal we have at hand. So it has happened to me in the past that I come to, training events. I learn a skill like this one, but my tendency is like, this is a task at hand. I need to go and do it, and I don't create that experience, a better experience for me. I don't think about like how do I show up, because that's, in my mind is. I just need to get that done, right? In the best possible way. I know I can do it, and I will do it, but it will be way more stronger if I actually use these type of techniques. So my question for you is, how do we make sure that, in 1 month, we all understand this is very important, but we stop using it? So how do we prevent that from happening?
Yeah, fantastic question. It's about intentionality. That's right. So I'm sure you've got some meetings on your calendar, right? How many meetings would you say you have in a day? 8 to 10 meetings. Those are 8 to 10 opportunities to show up with intention. So you wake up in the morning, you look at, okay, I've got that meeting. All right. Yes, you're going to think about your objective. What do I need to accomplish in this meeting? But how do I want to show up in this meeting? What's my real role in this meeting? Because it could be my role here is to support others. My role here is to listen. My role here is to encourage my team. That's purpose. So there's your objective, what you have to get done, but then there's the purpose. So that's a really easy way. Go through your calendar for each meeting. What qualities do I want to bring out in this meeting? Do I want to show up as curious? Do I want to show up as empathetic? What does my team really need from me? That's how you start applying it. Does that make sense? Great. Great. What else? What else? Yes, ma'am.
So a lot of this is acting differently to change perception. And sometimes when people already have a perception of you, that's hard to change. Your story suggests that that's doable, but I'm just curious, have you seen it where the perception's so locked, it doesn't evolve?
No.
By your stakeholders. Okay, yeah.
No. That's the beautiful thing. But it's about being conscious of the impression you want to create. So often we go through life and we're not really thinking about it. It's almost like being your own PR manager, right? Here's a great exercise for you. What qualities do I want other people to perceive in me? Just thinking about that. What are three adjectives that I can think of that would describe how I want to be perceived by others? And then you reverse engineer. So if I want people to perceive me that way, how would I need to show up in order to create that perception? Yeah, it can be that easy. It really can. Yeah, it's just about being intentional, like everything else in life. All right, so thank you so much for your time. Like I said, I'm going to be with you later on this afternoon. Before I go, I want to leave you with one final quote by the activist and poet Audre Lorde. When I dare to be powerful, to use my strength in service of my vision, then it becomes less and less important whether I am afraid. So, dare to be powerful, step into your presence, and have some fun. And as they say in the acting world, break a leg this afternoon. Have some fun. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Michelle. That was awesome. Thank you so much. Thank you again to Michelle. Authenticity, confidence, and purpose, and how they show up for you, and how you can be intentional about all the settings that you're in. It reminds me of a story. I was with a client in a board meeting just last month. There's a transaction going on. There were some cyber events with the target company. They're not acquired yet. And it was, in fact, an audit committee. And the CFO said, this is back to Sandeep's question, the CFO said, well, to answer your question about this risk, I'm absolutely terrified that something like this will happen again. I'm terrified that what we'll find is that there's dirtier, uglier, more rotted wood underneath this paint than what I thought was there. Now, because I'm so terrified and because I'm so motivated to wrestle this risk all the way to the ground, here's my plan. We pressure tested this plan. We went back and talked to our auditors, happened to be us in this case. We strengthened a few elements of our plan, and here's how you can measure the progress and success of that plan. And we're going to give you an update every 30 days. So it took a vulnerable moment where there was some authenticity about what motivated the CFO to get after this risk, along with confidence. I've done this like dozens of times. I know how to solve this problem. But the proactive communication about that whole rhythm is what increased the confidence of the board. And it also created a channel of accountability. And that's ultimately what you want, right? So I wanted to share the story because I loved the question, and we tend to see these as trade-offs. I think it's much more of an and. So question for you. How are you going to take what we heard from Michelle and make greater use of it? And I want to just really encourage you to think about that. This afternoon, during your practice media interviews, and as you get prepped, Michelle's going to join Corey Green and Mike Licata, and they're going to really work with you on not only the content of what you're saying, but how to actually present on camera. So this just continues to build for this afternoon. For now, I want to ask you to head your rooms. Let's work with natural direction on your final prep, and good luck. Break a leg on the mock presentations.
Can keep my hands on myself.